It's 9 p.m. You're on your third trip back to your child's room. First it was water, then the blanket wasn't right. Then they needed to tell you something important. Now they're scared of the dark. And you're trapped in that exhausting bedtime circus that somehow became normal. You negotiate, you accommodate, you lie down with them, you stay until they're asleep. But here's what happens next. This is the part most modern parents get completely wrong. You think you're being responsive. You think you're meeting their needs. You think this is what good parenting looks like. And that's exactly when bedtime becomes a 2-hour battle every single night. But parents in the 1950s had a rule so simple it sounds almost cruel to modern ears. Something about bedtime that made children sleep independently without drama, without tears, without endless callbacks. And it worked in about 10 minutes total. Most modern parents have abandoned the one bedtime rule that actually worked. But you won't be one of them after today. Here's what happens when your instinct is to be endlessly responsive at bedtime. You create elaborate routines. You add more songs, more stories, more time. You go back when they call. You comfort every fear. You accommodate every request. And here's what you probably don't realize. When you make bedtime infinitely flexible, your child's brain never learns to self-soothe into sleep. The routine has no endpoint. The boundary has no firmness. Your availability becomes the problem, not the solution. What could have been 10 minutes becomes 2 hours, and they're learning. Bedtime is negotiable. If I keep asking, I keep getting. Sleep is something that requires a parent present, not something my body does alone. If you've done this, if you felt that bone-deep exhaustion of bedtime taking over your entire evening, you're not broken. You're human. This is what we've been taught. Be gentle. Be responsive. Never let them cry. Meet every need. But here's where one generation figured out something we've completely lost. In 1950s homes, there was a rule so universal it didn't even need a name. Bedtime is bedtime. It's hard for modern parents to even comprehend, but it was something like non-negotiable routine, firm boundary, and complete parental exit. And it completely flips how we think about bedtime today. Picture this: a 1950s mother finishing the bedtime routine with her 6-year-old. Story done, lights out, goodnight kiss. She walks out. The door closes. The child stays in bed. If they call out, she doesn't go back. The rule is clear. Bedtime means bed, morning means up, and within 15 minutes, the child is asleep. That's the 1950s rule in action. Parents from that era didn't create endless routines. They created one clear boundary and held it because they understood something we've forgotten about sleep. When there's no possibility of parental return, sleep comes faster. When the boundary is firm, children stop testing it. Your complete exit isn't abandonment. It's the signal the brain needs. When you keep going back, they stay alert. When you don't, they surrender to sleep. This is called extinction of bedtime resistance. Your child's brain learns that calling doesn't bring results, so calling stops. Firm boundary is faster than gentle negotiation. That's the foundation of what we abandoned. So, let me name this method the bedtime boundary reset. It's called a reset because we're going back to what worked. We're resetting to a firmer, clearer, simpler approach. We're recreating the boundary that made children of the 1950s fall asleep in 15 minutes, while modern children take 2 hours. And I need to warn you, every step will feel harsh by modern standards. Every instinct trained by gentle parenting will scream at you that this is wrong. That's exactly why it works. I'm going to show you 5 simple steps that parents used to follow without question. And I want you to notice how different they are from what we do now, because when you see why the old way worked, you'll understand what we lost. Ready? 10 minutes. That's all bedtime used to take. Let's break it down. Step 1. The fixed time, non-negotiable. In the 1950s, bedtime wasn't a range. It wasn't flexible. It was 7:30 or 8 o'clock or whatever time the family chose. And it didn't change based on the child's mood or the parent's guilt. When the clock hit bedtime, the routine started. No 5 more minutes. No, just finish this episode. No negotiation at all. When you do this, something shifts. Your child's circadian rhythm locks onto the consistency. Their brain learns. This time means sleep. Every single night. No exceptions. The body prepares. Melatonin rises on schedule. The modern version, flexible bedtime based on how the day went, keeps the brain guessing. The 1950s version, rigid bedtime no matter what, trains the biology. That's the first piece we abandoned. Fixed time creates biological certainty. Step 2. The short routine, always the same. The routine in a 1950s home wasn't 45 minutes of stories, songs, back rubs, and conversations. It was 10 minutes, bath, pajamas, maybe one short story, prayers if the family was religious, goodnight kiss, done. The same sequence every single night, no additions, no special requests. And here's the key. The parent controlled the routine, not the child. One more story wasn't an option. The routine had a clear beginning and a clear end. When you do this, their brain learns the sequence. The predictability is soothing, not boring. Each step signals the next. And when the last step happens, goodnight kiss, their brain knows. The routine is complete. Sleep comes next. The modern version, ever-expanding routines that add more whenever the child seems to need it, has no endpoint. The 1950s version, fixed, short, same every night, has clear completion. That's the second piece we abandoned. Routine completion signals sleep. Step 3. Lights out means lights out. When the routine ended, the lights went out. Not dimmed, out. The room became dark. And darkness meant sleep, not playtime. There were no night lights creating perpetual twilight. No glow from hallway lights. No accommodations for fear of the dark beyond maybe a small crack in the door. When you do this, biology takes over. Darkness triggers melatonin production at full strength. The brain gets the unambiguous signal. Day is over. Sleep mode now. The modern version, lights dimmed but never truly dark, screens glowing, hallway lights streaming in, keeps the brain in twilight mode. The 1950s version, complete darkness, forces the biological shift. That's the third piece we abandoned. Darkness is non-negotiable for melatonin. Step 4. Parent leaves and doesn't return. This is the step that makes modern parents gasp. In 1950s homes, when the goodnight kiss happened, the parent left. They walked out. They closed the door. And here's the crucial part. They didn't go back. If the child called out, there was no response. If the child got out of bed, they were walked back without conversation, and the door closed again. The boundary was absolute. Bedtime means you stay in bed until morning. No exceptions, no callbacks, no accommodations. When you do this, the child's brain learns within a few nights. Calling doesn't work. Getting up doesn't work. The only option is sleep. The extinction of bedtime resistance happens fast when the boundary never bends. The modern version, going back for every call, every fear, every request, trains the exact opposite. The child learns. Keep trying. Eventually, mom comes back. The 1950s version, complete parental exit with no return, teaches. The boundary is real. I'm safe. Sleep is the only option now. That's the fourth piece we abandoned. Parental absence allows sleep onset. Step 5. Consistency every single night. The 1950s rule worked because it was followed every night. Sick or well. Happy or sad. Weekend or weekday. The same bedtime, the same routine, the same boundary, the same parental exit. No exceptions. When you do this, the pattern becomes ironclad. The child's brain doesn't look for loopholes because there aren't any. The modern version, Flexible based on circumstances, accommodating based on mood, keeps the child testing. Maybe tonight is different. Maybe tonight the rule doesn't apply. The 1950s version, unwavering consistency, removes all testing. The rule is the rule. That's the fifth piece we abandoned. Consistency eliminates resistance. Here's what just happened when I walked you through those 5 steps. You felt uncomfortable, maybe even horrified. That sounds so harsh. What about their emotional needs? What about attachment? What about responding to their fears? And that's exactly the problem. We've been taught that the 1950s approach is emotionally damaging, that it creates insecure attachment, that children need us present until they fall asleep. But here's what we've forgotten. The 1950s rule wasn't about being cold. It was about being clear. Those children weren't damaged. They learned to self-soothe. They learned that nighttime was safe even without a parent hovering. They learned that their body could find sleep independently. And here's what matters most. The research on sleep training supports it. Graduated extinction, the fancy modern term for the 1950s approach, works. Children fall asleep faster. They sleep longer. They wake less. And follow-up studies show no attachment damage, no emotional harm, no long-term negative effects. The 1950s parents weren't cruel. They were right. But here's the real payoff we lost when we abandoned this rule. You're not just losing sleep efficiency. You're losing the opportunity to teach your child one of life's most important skills, the ability to self-soothe, to be alone without panic, to trust that they're safe even when no one is watching over them. Modern children who need a parent present until unconsciousness hits, they're not learning that skill. They're learning the opposite, that they can't handle being alone, that sleep is scary without supervision, that their body can't be trusted to do what it's designed to do. The 1950s children learned, I'm capable, I'm safe, my body knows what to do. That confidence compounded into every area of life. Now I know what you're thinking. But what about their fears? What about separation anxiety? What if they really need me? Let me show you exactly what to expect if you bring back the 1950s rule. Night 1, you do the routine. You say goodnight, you leave. Your child calls for you, maybe cries. Every modern parenting instinct screams at you to go back. You don't. You hold the boundary. This is the hardest night. They're confused. The pattern changed. After 10 to 20 minutes, they fall asleep. You feel terrible. You wonder if you're damaging them. You're not. You're teaching them. Night 2, the same thing happens. They call. They might cry. But it's shorter. Maybe 10 minutes instead of 20. They're learning. The boundary is real. Night 3, they might call once or twice. But the crying is minimal or gone. They're testing if the rule still holds. It does. They fall asleep within 5 minutes. Night 5, they lie down. Maybe call once just to check. You don't respond. They roll over and go to sleep. The pattern is learned. This isn't magic. It's extinction of a behavior that was being reinforced. You stopped reinforcing bedtime resistance, so it stopped happening. But most parents report that by day 3 or 4, bedtime is faster than it's been in months. By week 2, their child goes to bed without resistance at all. By week 4, bedtime is a 10-minute routine followed by immediate sleep. This isn't hypothetical. This is what happens when you re-implement the boundary our grandparents never questioned. Let me tell you what this looks like 6 months in. Bedtime comes. Your child knows. 7:30 means routine starts. They don't argue, they don't negotiate. They just comply because the boundary has been firm for months. You do the quick routine. Story, hug, lights out. You walk out. They stay in bed. Within 5 minutes, they're asleep. You have your evening back. You're not trapped in their room for an hour. You're not going back 6 times. You're not lying down with them until they finally drift off. The rule that seemed so harsh gave you both something precious. Them, the confidence that they can sleep alone. You, your time and sanity back. That's not just better bedtime. That's the foundation the 1950s parents built without even knowing why it worked. Your child's bedtime doesn't just become shorter. The entire dynamic shifts, because they learn something modern children rarely learn. That boundaries are real, that parents mean what they say, that nighttime is safe even when alone, that their body is capable. You'll notice it in other areas too. Children who learn firm boundaries at bedtime tend to accept boundaries elsewhere more easily. They test less. They comply faster. They trust that when you say something, you mean it. That's not fear-based obedience. That's respect for boundaries. Bedtime that used to take 2 hours takes 10 minutes. The resistance that used to drain you doesn't exist. Their developing brain learns the pattern. And you get something back. You get your evenings. You get time with your partner. You get to not be touched out and exhausted. You get to model what firm, loving boundaries look like. You become the parent who can hold a line, and they become the child who can self-soothe. But let me address what you're really worried about. Didn't the 1950s also give us a generation with attachment issues and emotional suppression? Here's the nuance. The 1950s got bedtime right. They got other things wrong. Emotional expression, yes, was often suppressed. Affection, yes, was often withheld. But bedtime boundaries? Those weren't the problem. You can have firm bedtime, boundaries, and emotional attunement during the day. You can hold the line at night and meet their emotional needs all day long. The two aren't contradictory. Modern gentle parenting got many things right, but it overcorrected on boundaries. We threw out the baby with the bathwater. We can take back the 1950s bedtime rule without taking back emotional suppression. We can be firm at bedtime and warm everywhere else. Here's what else the 1950s got right that we lost. They didn't see bedtime as a relationship-building moment. They saw it as a biological necessity. Sleep is not optional. It's not negotiable. It's essential for development, health, mood, learning. By making bedtime flexible and endless, we're not being kind to our children. We're depriving them of adequate sleep. The 1950s parent who enforced strict bedtime was actually prioritizing their child's well-being, not being harsh. The modern parent who lets bedtime drag on for 2 hours because they're not tired yet, that's not responsive. That's permissive in a way that harms. So here's your challenge. Tonight, I want you to try something that will feel wrong by every modern standard. Pick a bedtime. 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever is appropriate for your child's age. Announce it to your child. Bedtime is at 8 o'clock now, every night. That's when our routine starts. Do a short routine, 10 minutes max, story, hug, lights out, walk out of the room. If they call, you don't go back. If they get out of bed, you walk them back wordlessly and close the door again. Hold that boundary. The first few nights will be hard, really hard. But watch what happens by night 5. Remember that exhausting bedtime circus from the beginning? The endless callbacks and accommodations? Here's the thing. With the 1950s bedtime boundary reset, they might still call the first few nights. The requests don't magically disappear. But here's what changes. When the boundary holds firm, when you don't go back, their brain learns fast. Calling doesn't work. The boundary is real. Sleep is the only option. And they find it. Not because you forced them, because you removed every other option. That's not cruel. That's clarity. And children thrive on clarity. Your child won't remember being scared the first few nights. They won't remember crying for 15 minutes on night 1. But they will internalize the confidence that they can sleep alone, that they're safe in the dark, that their body knows what to do, that nighttime isn't scary. And they'll carry that into every overnight at a friend's house, every camp, every college dorm, every adult bedroom for the rest of their life. The 1950s parents gave their children a gift: sleep independence. We can give our children that same gift. So, choose. Choose to bring back the boundary that worked. Choose to be the parent who holds the line at bedtime, not out of harshness, but out of love for your child's need for sleep and your own need for rest. Starting tonight, then come back. Tell me what happened on night 3. Comment below. Share your story because this method worked for an entire generation. It can work for you too. Not perfectly, but genuinely, reliably, in a way that gives you both the rest you desperately need. You've got this.